Welcome everybody, dear friends. Before we begin, this event is available on Zoom and is simultaneously translated from French to English. No, from English to French, sorry. Well, let me tell our French audience how to access this translation. À notre public francophone qui nous suit par Zoom, sachez que cet événement se déroulera en anglais avec traduction simultanée en français. Vous pouvez accéder à la traduction française en cliquant sur la map monde en bas de votre écran. Bienvenue à tous et maintenant on reprend en anglais. I am delighted to be with you this evening. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Boeri, the president of the Automobile Club de Monaco, for welcoming us today. I would also like to thank Mr. Ajar, Mr. Rajdi Ajar Jr., and Mr. Rajdi Ajar Sr. and all his team for making us feel at home in what is one of the most exclusive places in Monte-Carlo. We are incredibly fortunate to have such strong panelists with us today, starting with Rajdi Ajar and his team of SGMC, which includes Max, Ed, and Fulco. Rajdi is part of our network of expats abroad, the network Monaco Business Étranger, which is very dear to our heart. Rajdi grew up in Monaco and now lives and works in Singapore. He's a perfect person to showcase the strengths of the Singaporean economy and the many similarities it has with Monaco. You know that some people sometimes say that Monaco is a Singapore of Europe. Well, let's say that we sometimes try to be. It is also an opportunity for us to reconnect with possibly one of the best connected men in Southeast Asia. I mean, my friend Benoit Badufle. Benoit has been working with us for the Principality of Monaco, I'll say for decades. Currently, he runs his own promotion and marketing agency, or risk development and consulting. And most importantly, he's the director of the promotion bureau of the Principality of Monaco in Singapore. For those following us on Zoom, if you are an expat with either Monégasque or have lived and worked in Monaco, and you want to follow Monaco business opportunities, please reach out to us, especially to Margarita Colombo Pastorelli, who is with us today, and we will welcome you. So we will be happy to welcome you in that community, the Monaco Business Étranger. But now I'm going to leave the floor to Mr. Benoit Badufle first by Zoom from Singapore, because as you know, obviously, right now it's very difficult to travel between the two cities. First, I would like to say that I am very happy that the Deromedi family is here, because the Deromedi family is also the voice of Monaco in Singapore for many years now, and we are very proud to have them with us today. Hello, and thank you for coming here. And now I leave the floor to Benoit Badufle, if Benoit Ulrich says it's okay. Let's go. Thank you. Not right now, Benoit Badufle.
I'm here with you guys.
Here he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Benoit, we see you and we hear you.
Very good, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to this session. I have a horrible background, so I'm going to use only one of my ears. This is a pleasure for me to reconnect with all my friends in Monaco. Some of you have known me from my Monaco years. When I was working with Monte-carlo Société des Bains de Mer. Some of you have known me for my Singapore years, and some of you don't know me. So for those who do not know me, my name is Benoit Badufle, like Guillaume said, and I am the director of the promotion bureau of the Principality of Monaco, based in Singapore, and responsible for the Asia region, except for Japan. Benoit, please put the first slide for me. Thank you. So I wanted to remind that the initiative to upgrade, so to speak, the Bureau of Visit Monaco to the Promotion Bureau of the Principality of Monaco was Guillaume's idea. And I can thank him enough for having had this initiative, because I had been trying my hardest for the few years before to actually embody this idea to be a pivotal service for all the entities of the Principality of Monaco who wish to have help. I'm not as competent at all in finance as Roger and his team are, so that's not my idea to explain that. But we have been a very efficient and faithful help for many of the Monaco entities for the last few years, based in Singapore, but also in other countries of Asia, which we cover, which are all Southeast Asia, Greater China, and South Korea. So since 2015, we have been able to use Singapore, which is a major aviation and business hub between the West and the Orient, to promote Destination Monaco through various means, and to develop also our connections with China, because we are also responsible for China. We have a small office in Beijing, which has been able to penetrate a bit further the Chinese market. And before the COVID crisis hit, we were quite successful with this clientele. Benoit? So very quickly, these are the three main persons that you will meet when you visit us in Asia. So that's me up there. Then on the left side, our young prodigy, Zheng, who's with me here in Singapore, and who's a Singaporean young man, very talented, who speaks French. And on his right, you see Sophie, who is our social media young lady. She's also a very talented young woman. She's Chinese, and she also speaks French perfectly. So I just wanted to let you know that we're there to help you, and we will continue to help whoever asks for help in the region of Asia. And I really look forward to coming to Monaco probably in January 2022, and also to receive any of you who wishes to visit us in the region as soon as possible. I'm going to show you a very short sequence, which we're very proud of. It comes from an interview which I did of Minister Iswaran, who in the meantime has changed his position, but is still a prominent minister in the Singapore government. And it was an interview which I wanted to do with him because he was, some of you will remember him probably, he was in Monaco to learn how to set up and tear down the Grand Prix. In 2007 and 8, he was received by everyone who counts in the F1 world, plus many high-level officials, including His Serene Highness Prince Albert II of Monaco, and you may remember him. For those who don't, I actually went to see him to ask him about how he thought Monaco and Singapore looked, how similar Singapore and Monaco were. And here is what he has to say. I think it's going to be a great introduction to Rushdie and team's presentation tonight. Benoit?
I went to Monaco in 2007 because at that stage we were actively preparing to host the Formula One Grand Prix for the first time in Singapore in 2008. We wanted to learn from Monaco. Well, the Singapore Formula One Grand Prix was, of course, the first night race, but the similarity we had with Monaco was that it's a street race. And once you have a street race, there are many logistical challenges. One of the things that struck me was how integrated the effort was in Monaco between the Automobile Association, but also the government authorities, and in fact, even the palace, with His Royal Highness very actively involved. And some describe the Singapore race as the Monaco of the East. And we took that as a great compliment because of the history and the iconic status that the Monaco race has in the Formula One calendar. But more generally, I think we have many similarities because we are small but significant economic entities. We are connected to the region around us. We provide a safe and reliable jurisdiction within which businesses can function. We are locations which seek to attract talent, not just to fuel the economic vibrancy, but also the broader cultural, artistic, and social vibrancy of our respective countries. So I think there are many similarities between Monaco and Singapore. The challenges and the opportunities are similar, as vibrant cities, vibrant states located within a larger region, whilst we maintain our own distinctive identity and our value proposition as a lifestyle and global hub. Well, to all the people of Monaco, I think I would want to say that you have a beautiful, lovely home, one that we all take great pleasure in visiting, where we take away memories for a lifetime. And we wish you continued success and good health as Monaco continues to grow from strength to strength.
I hope you liked it. Now it's time for me to pass the floor to my friend Rojdi Hajar, who's normally with us in Singapore, who's the lucky one tonight because he's in Monaco with you guys. And Rojdi, carry on.
Thank you, Benoit.
I'll mute myself. Have a good evening. I'll stay around.
Fantastic. Thank you, Benoit. Thank you for also producing this amazing video. It has made the best intro we could have in showcasing the similarities between Monaco and Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, member of the MEB, Monaco Economic Board, friends from all around the world, good evening. I will start by thanking everyone involved at the Monaco Economic Board with an amazing and dynamic team, professional, for making this event happening, offering us this opportunity. I would also like to thank the Automobile Club and its president for hosting us in this very iconic venue where incredible meetings have happened. And I would like to thank, obviously, the team at SGMC and Benoit for being here at midnight doing a presentation. So like Mr. Guillaume Rose said, I was born in Monaco. I grew up in Monaco. And 12 years ago, I was sent for a mission with the bank I was working with for a month. After 3 beautiful kids, an amazing Asian wife, and 12 years, I'm still fully immersed in Singapore, professionally and personally. 4 years ago, with Max, Max, my partner here at SGMC, we decided to step up in our entrepreneurial career and created SGMC. At the very beginning, at the inception, we had the vision already to create synergies between Monaco and Singapore, hence SGMC Capital, our name. We're going to stop talking about myself or SGMC. We're going to go into the topic, which is discovering Singapore and Asia opportunities and growth. And for that, we'll have a little jump into history. And after that, Ed, our CIO, will talk through some economical data, and the floor will be then for Max. So we'll start the presentation. Please, on the slide number 3. Yes, thank you. So we all wonder why Singapore is successful. And I would say how Singapore grabbed and deemed to be successful. First of all, and it's not in order, we have their geographical location, their foreign investment friendly policies, and their governance, the framework, the legal framework. I will start with their location. Singapore is basically suspended at the Malacca Straits. Malacca Straits accounts for almost 40% of the whole maritime trades. And it's not really the cause of its success, but Singapore captured the opportunity and leveraged on that. And other countries in the same region didn't, as best as Singapore did. And that's one of the key pillars of Singapore's success. Second, we'll talk about the friendly policies that the government and its leader, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of modern Singapore, has put in place. Singapore is very business friendly, and that has attracted a lot of foreign investors. That leads to the third point, which is an efficient and honest government. In Singapore, when we say it's efficient, it's because policies evolve but don't change. It is very clear. Policies also are honest. Then, what I said, let me go through my notes, but it's clear, it's efficient, and it's secure. And those are the three ingredients for a successful recipe to attract foreign investor and protect, having a strong legal framework, protects the interest of entrepreneurs, but also employees, and offer one of the best infrastructure you can find in the world. There will be a lot of other pillars, other success that Singapore has achieved within 15 years, but the list would be very long. So I'm going to do now a jump into the history, and instead of going by dates, I'm going to go by eras. Obviously, Singapore was not born 50 years ago. It was basically, I would say, discovered or leveraged by Sir Raffles Stanford and became a kind of British colony, and especially a post for trading. Their location, so before Lee Kuan Yew was on post as the leader, already Sir Raffles Stanford had understood the importance of its location. And in the 19th century, the Suez Canal offered much more traffic, much more flow for the Straits of Malacca to be exposed to the global trades. And that was what Sir Raffles Stanford leveraged on. He put up the Straits settlements and made Singapore already a very successful place for trading. However, as you know, during the Second World War, Japanese invasion for 4 years. And once the Japanese invasion were defeated, Singapore became back under the British influence and colony. That was the first era. The second era, we will call it the independence era. And so the National Day in Monaco is 19th of November. In Singapore is the 9th of August, if I'm not wrong. And it's on the independence, the full independence of Singapore came not long ago, 56 years ago, if my computation is right, on the 9th of August, 1965. That was an important moment. And at the very beginning, its leader had a clear vision on how he wanted Singapore to be, a garden city, a global city. And he put all the means to achieve that. The third era is how Singapore became a global city. And there are many dates, many important events that happen. And for that, I think you can only be global if you are reachable. And for that, Changi Airport, named as one of the best airports in the world, and it's the only airport in the world where your luggage waits for you. You don't wait for your luggage. Was crucial to expose Singapore as not only a stopover, but also a hub. So Changi Airport and its fantastic carrier, Singapore Airlines. Singapore is home of most millionaires in the world. And there are so few private jets. Why? Because Singapore Airlines is so efficient, it's so commercial, it's almost always on time. That's the rise of private planes only came very late. I will move now, because there's much more data to take you through. I will move now to the last era, which is the last 20 years. And a lot of things have happened. I'm just going to take the example of the Formula One. Why? Because we are here at the Automobile Club. But it was a very important investment for Singapore to be seen, to be on the global map. And it was obviously a great gamble, because I arrived in Singapore in 2009. So on the first race, I was mesmerized by what was Singapore. And that was the first time I was seeing Singapore at the age of 28. So I guess it was a great gamble. And they really enhanced on the infrastructure, on being sustainable, on being on the very high end of the technology. They adapt, and they go quite fast. They progress very fast. Even during COVID, as you can see, we just left 2000 to 2019. 2020, 2021 was an extraordinary momentum for Singapore to pivot. That was the biggest word of our leaders. You have to pivot from the very beginning. We all did. Singapore was, as you know, on the press for being a good student, sometimes a bit too stringent. This is why Benoit and Max are not here tonight, most probably. But it's effective, it's efficient, it's clear, it's honest, going back to the pillars that I described before. I will pass now the floor to Ed, our CIO, and he will take you through some key economical data.
Thanks very much, Rushdie. Ladies and gentlemen, a great pleasure to be speaking with you. My name is Ed Gomez. I've been with SGMC Capital for the last 1 year, but I've known Rushdie and Max all the way from 2010. We've been working closely across many years together. Prior to being in Singapore, starting from 2004, I grew up in Bombay in India. And effectively, I'm the most Asian of the entire team at SGMC. Thanks very much for your attendance, and I wanted to take you through some of the numbers which we have, just to give you a showcase of what exactly Singapore is all about. Starting with the GDP numbers, Singapore in 2020 had a GDP of about $340 billion US. To put that into perspective, give you a couple of examples. Switzerland was probably twice that at about 750 to 800 billion. Austria coming in at about 400 billion is roughly the same size as Singapore. And keep in mind the size of Singapore, it's a very tiny island. You can go from east to west in about 30 to 45 minutes. And for such a small country to have such a high GDP is fairly interesting. The per capita GDP, per person GDP is about $60,000 US per person, which again is a very, very high number for Asia and ranks in line with Japan, South Korea, being the other couple of countries where you have GDP numbers per capita matching Western democracies and Western economies. So the country has grown very well over the, as Rushdie said, across various decades and eras, and it continues to do so. If you look at the population, Singapore has a very, very, very solid immigration policy. There are lots of people who want to become permanent residents in Singapore, as well as eventually also convert to Singapore citizenship. And you're now seeing about 5.6 million people call Singapore home. Unemployment, unfortunately, has ticked up a little bit to about 5%, 5.2%, thanks to what's playing out with COVID. But at the same time, the number of jobs being advertised in Singapore is also close to the same number. So it's just a transitionary phase where people do get let go or choose to leave and then get re-employed. The government has been very supportive in the last 12 to 18, 24 months in helping various Singaporeans go through the rough patch of COVID, and that's always been a welcome news. Looking at the trade data, and this is something which is particularly interesting. If you look at the imports of about 630 billion, you look at the exports of close to almost 700 billion, you add those two together and compare that to the GDP of only 340 billion, you get a sense of how important trading is for this country. Of course, being a small country, a lot of the food items do get imported, a lot of the electronics and consumer items do get imported. But at the same time, Singapore is a great energy processing hub. It has a very well developed oil and gas infrastructure, so they import a lot of the raw crude and then process it here and then export it. As Rushdie mentioned, Singapore is a great transshipment hub as well as a great processing hub for the oil and gas industry. So these trade numbers are high, and as one would expect in 2020 and 2021 have taken a bit of a knock, but we'd expect these to pick back up pretty soon. Just wanted to take you through some of the industries. So wealth management is one of the main industries in Singapore, and we're expecting in 2021 to be managing $3.5 trillion worth of wealth, and that's something which is quite significant. And just given the size of the economy, you can see that with the $340 billion GDP, 3.5 trillion coming in and being managed out of Singapore just means that a lot of that money is coming in from overseas. And given the legal systems, given the financial infrastructure, given all the other infrastructure put in place, Singapore has been a magnet and has attracted both clients as well as professionals like ourselves to base ourselves here and work with clients, in terms of helping them manage their money. The other industry which I spoke about was the oil and gas industry. In Monaco, when you look out into the sea, you see yachts. When we look out into the sea, we see oil tankers, not as pretty, but fairly large. We'll take that. Some of the largest companies in the oil and gas infrastructure space, whether you're looking at Baker & Hughes, whether you're looking at Schlumberger, whether you're looking at Halliburton, have their facilities in Singapore. Singapore obviously does not have the oil fields, but it has the processing capacity, and these companies have set up base here, just providing a rich ecosystem across the space. They're involved in research and development, extreme deep sea mining operations get researched in Singapore, as well as across the chain. When you're in the petroleum business, you inevitably tend to be in the chemicals business. You inevitably tend to be in the plastics business. And Singapore has set up LNG terminals. They're considering further expanding that capacity. And that's something which only helps develop the industry for the long term. If you're looking at a snapshot, about $5.1 billion worth of output generated, more than 10,000 skilled workers employed, and of the 5 top oil field equipment and services companies, a lot of them are based in Singapore. To take a slightly different view of the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, again, as much as oil and energy is important, biotech and pharmaceuticals are the future. You've had Singapore as a leading commercial hub. A lot of companies set up base in Asia, and then they choose Singapore to be their regional headquarters, and then provides a whole series of advantages. You also have significant manufacturing capabilities. You have the best systems in place. You've got companies like GlaxoSmithKline, you've got Merck, you've got Roche, you've got Novartis. All of them choose to set up in Singapore. Looking at, more importantly, all of that is important, but what drives the future is the innovation. And Singapore has tended to support innovation, spending almost $4 billion in 2016, and the numbers only grow. So you've had three times the amount of output produced from 2000 to 2020, that number is very strong and only looking to grow. Apart from these industries, which are fairly high tech, Singapore is obviously involved in the aviation business. A lot of carriers choose to have Singapore as a base, and also just given the travel potential, Singapore is a great tourist destination as well. If you look at the numbers here, they're quite staggering. Total tourism revenue, 27.7 billion in 2019. If you're looking at hotel revenue, about 4.2 billion. And if you're looking at international visitor arrivals, about 19 million people come in every year. And if you look at the markets, mainly China, Indonesia, India, primarily contributing. So this is just a snapshot of the various opportunities that we see in the markets. But to give you a much deeper dive into these, I'm going to hand over the floor to Max Bondovi, our CEO, who will take you through that.
Thank you very much, Ed. And first of all, I would like to start by thanking the Monaco Economic Board and the Automobile Club de Monaco, who made all of this possible. And of course, all of you here with us this evening. Thank you very much. As we have mentioned a few times, we would have loved to be there with you physically. I personally would have loved to be there as well. Of course, having grown up in Monaco, I definitely do miss Monaco. It's been nearly 2 years since I've been back. But hopefully next time for the next event, we'll be able to make that happen. Just in terms of a short summary about myself, for those of you who do not know me, I am Massimiliano Bondurri. I am the founder and CEO of SGMC Capital, and I've been in the private banking industry for the last 15 years. I have had the honor to start in Monaco, and after that, I have also been able to work in a number of financial hubs like Switzerland, Abu Dhabi, and Singapore, where I've been now for the last 10 years, and as Rudy mentioned, where we have started SGMC Capital. But now let's go a little bit back to what Ed has mentioned, what he was talking about, because we find it fascinating just to take a look at the incredible growth, opportunity, and potential that Asia and especially Singapore has. And you've seen that throughout the graphs and throughout the numbers that Ed has portrayed. But how exactly can we take advantage of that? How exactly can we position ourselves in order to capture this potential? And this is what we're going to be talking about for the next few minutes. And before, though, we take a look at the actual themes themselves, there's one critical thing that you need to think about, and that is finding the right partner. Now, clearly, Singapore is not behind the corner. Therefore, you do need to work with someone who has the experience, has the knowledge, has the connection, and has the understanding of such a different market, such as Singapore and Asia. When we talk about finding the right partner, of course, that entertains a number of different things. Corporate structure is clearly one of the most important ones. We're talking, of course, about corporate governance. We're talking about the professional experience, how established they are within the market. But of course, probably one of the most important points is making sure that you find a partner who understands exactly what you're looking for and what your objectives are. Because clearly, you do want to take an exposure to the Asian and Singaporean theme and growth potential. But at the same time, probably you want to do it with a bit of a monegasque eye. So not necessarily exposing yourself to some of the higher risk rewards themes that are out there and available in Asia. So it is very important that you do find someone who really understands everything you're looking for, and especially what your objectives and primary objectives would be in what you'd be looking to do. And clearly that then eventually boils down to developing the trusting relationship, which is at the core of everything. Now, clearly we would love to be that partner, but independently of that, we do believe that that is the first step that anyone who is looking to undergo something in Singapore or Asia, but Singapore more specifically, needs to look at. But now, again, let's take a look at some of the actual themes that are available and are interesting. Now, clearly, in terms of investment opportunities in Singapore and Asia, there's a number of different ones. Some of them, for example, relate to the real economy. Therefore, maybe taking a European company and expanding in Singapore, potentially for the gateway to Asia, or maybe it's some more specific projects to develop something in one of the key industries that Ed has mentioned before, because of course, it is an environment which is nurturing for new and high growth businesses. It can also mean, of course, real estate. There's a number of very interesting real estate opportunities in Singapore, which, for example, in terms of just cost, is much lower than Hong Kong. But those will be a little bit, I would say, more niche kind of projects. Therefore, maybe today, let's focus on some of the investment opportunities within the liquid financial world and some major themes that we have been discussing quite a lot within our connection, within our entourage, with the families that we follow, and that have been gathering a lot of attention worldwide. So first of all, clearly we cannot avoid talking about China. Now, China has been in the headlines for a number of different reasons, the majority of them being actually quite negative over the last few months. What you have seen is an incredible increase in the negative headlines that have appeared in China. And you're seeing a huge pressure from the Chinese government in some of the high growth and especially tech companies that China has managed to develop over the last few years and which are growing at an incredible pace. Now, why is that happening? The term is actual common prosperity. And that's one of the terms that you'll be hearing a lot and even more going forward in China. Summarizing it and simplifying it a bit, we can say that that's basically a focus on reducing income inequality within China. Now, clearly, how do you achieve that? Or what is one way that you can achieve that? Well, clearly, you're going to be increasing scrutiny and potentially pressure on those high growth and high profit companies that China has. And clearly, we can all think of Baba, Tencent, and so on, these really high growth and high profit companies. Now, that can take a number of different forms. So we have seen initially some warnings in terms of headlines. We've seen some fines happening, but this can actually go to an extreme whereby recently China has basically destroyed overnight one of the industry which was growing at very high margins, which is the tutoring industry. So basically, kind of overnight, they have decided that the tutoring industry was going to become a not-for-profit organization. Therefore, all of the companies that were set up to make a profit have had a very strong beating, and overnight, they basically lost 70 to 80% in the stock market. And that has also repercussion, of course, in terms of equity valuations. We're going to focus on that in a moment, but also in terms of actually the outcomes from the company. So some things that we have been seeing, for example, to give you an example, Pinduoduo, which is a Chinese tech company, has recently announced that the first $1.5 billion of profits that they will make going forward are actually going to be donated to agricultural projects within China. And that's clearly mind-blowing if you think about it, because we don't often have that in the Western world, in Europe and in the US. So there's definitely something changing. And that is clearly going to be followed by a number of other different companies which are going to follow down in those paths. So Tencent has already done that, and a number of them are just going to follow, because that's going to become the new normal. But looking at how that has affected equity valuations, let's just take a look at that graph down there. We're here basically comparing the NASDAQ to the China internet darlings of China, which basically it's the Tencent, JD, Baba, Baidu, Meituan, and so on and so forth. So let's say the big unicorns that you're all aware of. Year to date, which means basically from the 1st of January of 2021, NASDAQ is up about 15–16%. And these Chinese internet names are down 35%. So that's a 50% discrepancy, which is huge. Right? So what does this create? Could this be an interesting investment opportunity here? Well, we think for the long-term investor, definitely that's something interesting. In the short term, visibility is going to remain low. Uncertainty is going to remain high. You're going to see more and more negative headlines hit these prices, and it's definitely not going to stop overnight. But that being said, if you do focus on the right companies in the longer term, these valuations, especially from a relative perspective, are extremely interesting. And just make sure you focus on three main things which drive the core of everything that we do as well. It's basically look at companies who have been growing consistently and at a high pace over the last few years. Look at companies that actually have a high margin or potential to keep that margin also going forward. And companies have been able to achieve everything I've just said with little to zero debt. Because at the end of the day, if you look at a company with zero debt, who is growing fast with high margins, clearly longer term, chances are this is going to be a very good investment. Again, it's not for the faint of hearted. And the kind of advice that we are giving is to take a diversified approach. So don't only look at the JBs and Babas of the world, but also look at what could be the domestic champions within China going forward. So also look at industries like the automotive industry, the renewables industry, the financial sector, energy. So have a diversified exposure to this theme because current valuations are attractive for the longer term. If we switch geographical area, let's just take a look at Japan. Now, Japan is probably one of the only, if not the only, developed market who is likely to continue witnessing increased support from both the central bank and from a fiscal point of view. If there's something that we have all learned over the last 20 years is do not fight central banks and do not fight the fiscal stimulus. And as much as clearly there's a huge amount of monetary help and in the US with the Fed and clearly with the European Central Bank, but what matters here is where is that help going forward? Because clearly the Fed is talking about tapering, so that means reducing, even though it's a massive help, but reducing the help. ECB has more or less done everything that it could. Fiscally, sure, Europe is still going to try and help, and the US as well. But what you're seeing with Japan, with the potential new prime minister coming, is some more impetus for further fiscal stimulus, and as well as potentially a Bank of Japan open to continue doing more in order to help them. So clearly, if you put those two things together, coupled with the fact that in Japan, the largest entities actually have an obligation to invest part of their assets within the equity market, clearly you're going to have a market which is going to remain supportive going forward. And finally, of course, we could not miss Singapore. Now, Singapore is especially interesting in these times because Singapore in general is tends to be lower beta. So beta simply means the relative risk of that specific index. In an environment whereby uncertainty is quite high, like the one that we're seeing now, where visibility is low, really having a market which tends to be more solid, tends to be less prone to violent reactions, clearly has a plus. In addition to that, we already discussed all the positives of Singapore from a political and economic and trading perspective. And if you add to that the fact that a number of the stocks actually trade with very interesting dividend yields, which, let me remind you, are free of withholding tax. Unlike Europe and US, there's no withholding tax on the majority of Singaporean stocks, then clearly what you have is something very interesting that can form the core of globally diversified portfolio. And again, especially in these times where uncertainty is high, where volatility potentially could spike up in the future once that help from the Fed is going to be removed, Singapore is definitely one of the things that we've been looking at, we've been increasing exposure to, and that we're getting a lot of requests from around the world. Now, these are, of course, only some examples. There's a lot of other opportunities out there, but we thought these would be the most, I would say, relevant ones that maybe could interest you going forward. Clearly, if you have any specific questions, that is why we're here. But I now give the floor back to.
Okay, thank you, Max. As you can see, we are very passionate on what we do as a team. I'm going to conclude the event, and I just want to add that in line with the Monaco Economic Board mission, and as proud members of the MBE, we are here as a contact to help you, to guide you for projects that you may have to go to take the Made in Monaco beyond Monaco, and especially in Singapore and its region. And I will finally say thank you for your presence today.